mind, I'm here to stay. With my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Propaganda swilling, but it won't touch me. Only love around us. With rhythm in my soul, I'm ready for the show. We break the chains, rewrite the rules. In this concrete jungle where nobody's fools. Unity sings louder than the lies they scheme. In the heart of the struggle, we dare to dream. We keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. Haze on the corner, they talking real loud. Spreading on light, trying to bring me down. Enemies lurking, but I won't back away. Got a vision in my mind, I'm here to stay. With my crew beside me, we rise like a tide. When the storm gets rough, we ain't gonna hide. Propaganda's swilling, but it won't touch me. Only love around us, how it's gonna be. We keep moving forward, never looking back. The truth's in the power, it's an unstoppable track. In the city light.
All right. Hello, everyone. Grand Rising. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free. Excuse me, I'm still losing my voice, you guys. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time Queen Goddess goes live. Okay, so before we get into it, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so with that being said, you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, so let's get into it. Hello, Lillian X. Khalid is here. Buckhorst DC, 504 NOLA, DJ Big Six. All right, Eric is here. One Who Cares. Nessa G. Okay, let's get into it. Anita Harrell. It's me, Lisa Lee. All right. G from the land is in the house. Virgil, Trisha, Deronda is here. Okay. The Baba of Truth. All right. Shout out to the elder in the house. Okay. So I just saw somebody. Hey, Miss Sheila. I just saw somebody. The lounge is in the house. Hey, beloved. Y'all remember the lounge was here yesterday for that panel discussion. If you guys missed that, please go back and watch. Okay. I see you, 504 NOLA. And I saw somebody who said they were newly subscribed. I want to welcome you, Trisha Hope. Okay. Thank you, Trisha, for subscribing to the channel, beloved. And shout out to everyone. Hey, Bookhorse DC. All right. Shout out to everyone tuned into the Queen. Let's get ready to get into it, honey. Bree is in the house. Okay. Let's get the likes up. Very important that you get those likes up. And also let me say, hey, Mom, if you have not been receiving your notifications, please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed. Sometimes people become unsubscribed for whatever reason. And so, hey, that crazy bitch Aries. Shout out to my moderators who put in work. Aquarius MC is in the house. Okay, so thank you, Trisha, for purchasing a membership. All right, I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Ladybug is in the house. Now, listen, guys, I'm going to be reading you all. I'm going to have a members only live. I may do that sometime later on this evening so we can talk about that book, okay, that Clayton Howard wrote about Cassie. Now, with that all being said, let's get into it, honey, because first of all, Diddy has gotten some of the allegations in his civil lawsuit tossed out. We're going to get into that. But also, Matthew Russell from Inner City Press is accusing the alternate juror who's been going around doing these interviews and all of that, has accused him of lying during the voir dire process. Okay, so I think we might want to address that first because I find it all interesting. Okay, so let's get into what Matthew has to say about him because this is all very interesting. Now, first of all, I don't know if you guys know this, but if a juror is found to have lied during the voir dire process, well, that could result in a mistrial, an appeal, or whatever. And specifically if they lied about having a tie to law enforcement, which is what Matthew is accusing him of. Now, mind you, of course, Diddy's not going to want an appeal, a mistrial, or any of that, because it worked in his favor. But, well, I'm not going to say that specifically worked in his favor, but I'm saying the verdict worked in his favor. Now, I don't know if this man lied or not. These are allegations brought by Matthew Russell. So let's get into what he has to say. I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. And from the sounds of it, if he in fact lied about this, I don't know how the prosecution or the defense or the judge or nobody noticed, because it sounds like something that's common sense. Okay, it sounds like something's common sense. So let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Here we go.
That I think unanimously we kind of all said like, wow, like it was.
Now you see right here, the judge told them don't speak with each other, okay, about the case, and don't speak with anybody else, and don't look up anything about the case. We'll see you tomorrow to start at 1 p.m. Now, the judge told them this, repetitively. He told them what to do and what not to do. But as I told you all, and Henny said last night, that girl Henny also said last night, that it was a big mistake not to sequester the jurors. I told you all that a month or so ago. Because, of course, like I told you, even when people pick up their cell phones and they get notifications from Google alerts or just from social media like Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, you get notifications, you may inadvertently, even if you're not trying to snoop and find out anything, you may see something. But this isn't what I'm talking about, okay? This is something that Henny, in fact, spoke about last night. When he did the interview, she said he was saying, we discussed it. Now, when were they having this discussion? Was this before, during, or after, or was this before deliberations or during deliberations? I don't know, because he gave these interviews right after the verdict. Okay, so that all being said, that all remains to be seen. But now here's what Matthew has to say. Now this is Matthew's voice you'll hear speaking.
Juror in the U.S. versus Sean Combs trial, who spoke on CNN. He went forward. We covered him when during jury selection, he said he worked for the UN Office of Counterterrorism and that didn't work with U.S. law enforcement. We didn't think that was true. But after the verdict, he went on CNN and he called himself George. And here's one of the things that he said. Then we asked the UN about it.
The prosecution was showing more, just Cassie just sitting around.
The defense showed that.
Yeah.
Wait, was it
just her sitting around not engaging in sexual activity?
Prosecution or defense?
Yes.
The prosecution, when you had to have your headphones on, in other words, what were you seeing then?
There was sexual activity, but I mean, it wasn't.
He went on to say it was pretty tame, actually. So we decided to ask the UN a few questions. So ask the UN a few questions. One, to confirm that George works at the Office of Counterterrorism, and a few other things that you can see there. This is the context of this that the UN doesn't actually allow us in, but they did say they'll answer written questions. You see, this is the UN spokesman, Stefan Dujarric, and he was asked whether he'd be answering questions.
We've also answered Mr. Lee's questions. We continue to answer the questions that he emails in, questions that he's asking. We've also answered Mr. Lee.
See, it's pretty straightforward. Here's George, UN Office of Counterterrorism, that's UNCT, and he's the contact, 201, well, you see it. Strange thing about that phone number is that it goes to a real estate. He's a real estate agent, but also he's working for the human rights at the United Nations. So we emailed, to make a long story short, we emailed Stefan Dujarric the questions that you've seen in the morning. He had time. He had a briefing, and here's what he did.
Good afternoon. Chris, just a warning, there is no money quiz today, so,
It's all about the money.
Tomorrow at 12:45, there'll be a joint press briefing here by Ambassador Ataeva, the permanent representative of Turkmenistan to the...
Great.
Okay. Speaking of due process...
Didn't answer any questions. Has still not answered, hours later, the questions submitted to him. He's paid quite a lot of money and lives on the Upper East Side in a penthouse. Maybe...
I shouldn't even get paid for today.
Real estate, that's true. Real estate agent George is involved. So Inner City Press has applied to enter to X these very questions and others. This was June 19th, 2025, submitted to Melissa Fleming and others, Antonio Gutierrez. As yet, no answer, but we won't rest. Inner City Press on the cases.
Now, what I find interesting about this, and I like Matthew. I follow him. I was getting my updates from him and all of that. But what I find interesting is Matthew had this information since June the 19th. Okay, June the 19th, and he's bringing it up after the verdict. Could it be because Matthew doesn't like the way the verdict turned out? I don't know. But what I will say is this. It would be very interesting to me if, in fact, this man lied during the voir dire process. And you mean to tell me the judge, the defense, and the prosecution, none of them noticed that? Because, well, it's common sense, okay, that the counterterrorism department does, in fact, work with law enforcement. But the question is, what role does he have, if any, in the counterterrorism department? Okay? That, to me, would specifically pertain to what his role is, because the UN Office of Counterterrorism absolutely works with law enforcement. I mean, I learned that when I was in school for criminal justice, when we were doing something about the police and how they can prevent and aid in the fight against terrorism. Okay, so basically, if he did lie, or if a juror does lie during the voir dire process, they could face perjury, contempt of court, removal from the jury, which the case is over with now. There could be a mistrial or an appeal if it was unfavorable for the defendant, or for the defendant, because basically, if it resulted in any sort of actual bias against the defendant, okay, then there could be grounds for a mistrial or an appeal. Now, also, it would depend on the materiality of the lie. Was the lie, or would the court likely consider whether the juror's connection to law enforcement and the denial of that connection during the jury selection process, whether it was material to the fact that it could have influenced the fairness of the trial or the juror's ability to be impartial? Well, I would say no. Okay. And then also it would be the intent. The court would consider, basically, was the juror purposely lying, intentionally lying just to get on the jury or for some other agenda, or was it just an honest mistake? And then also they would ask the question, it would depend on whether there was prejudice. The defense would need to demonstrate that the juror's actions resulted in some sort of prejudice against the defendant, and which I'm sure the defense is not going to say that, okay, because like I said, it turned out in their favor. So basically the long and short of it is, lying during the jury selection process is a serious matter with potential criminal consequences and could jeopardize the outcome of a trial in some cases, depending on what the lie was and how serious or how much of a bearing it had on the case. Okay, now, as I said, the United Nations Office of Counterterrorism works very closely with law enforcement, okay, in various ways to help combat and fight against terrorism, specifically by providing strategic leadership, helping them to coordinate things, the capacity for building and supporting member states, and all of these things. And it also helps to support countries in strengthening their national counterterrorism policies and law enforcement capabilities. Okay. Like I said, these are all things I learned when I was in college for criminal justice. With that all being said, I don't know if the man lied, if he's a liar who lies or whatever, because he could work with them. He could work with them and not have any dealings with law enforcement. It just depends on what role he specifically had, what division of within the department that he actually worked in. Okay. So with that all being said, Cherry P said the jury is under investigation. The trial may be deemed a mistrial. He's not under investigation, beloved. Please stop listening to clickbait headlines. This juror is not under investigation as far as I know. There's no report saying that. Okay. There's no report saying that he's under investigation. Okay. Like I said, Matthew Russell knew this information since June the 19th. Okay. So did he tell the judge about this? Did he question the defense, the prosecution, or anybody about this back then? I don't know. But as of now, I don't think that he's currently under an investigation. Now, if Matthew submits this information to the judge, maybe they'll look into it. And maybe they already know the answer. I mean, I don't see how they would have let something like this slide, because it's obvious and it's common sense, like I said, okay? It's common sense that the UN's counterterrorism department absolutely works with law enforcement. Why would they have it? Counterterrorism is a big problem, for this country and others. So of course they're going to work with different law enforcement agencies to combat terrorism. And we know that we have a serious issue with that in this country, okay, with them fighting against terrorism. All right, so that all being said, we'll see how that all turns out. But like I said, I'm not going to say the man lied, because it would depend on what his sole purpose is, what his delegated duties are within that department. And then, so it would depend on all of that. Okay, so I would think that would be something they would have already hashed out and looked into during the voir dire process. I mean, it seemed as though they were doing their due diligence on getting information about the jurors. I mean, remember, they got rid of juror number 6 because someone in the jury department said that he moved 2 weeks after sometime during the trial and supposedly moved to New Jersey or whatever. Okay, they were looking at that so seriously, but this sounds like a bigger issue. Okay, was he working with law enforcement? Here's the thing. I want you all to pay attention. If, in fact, they knew specifically the prosecution, let's talk about it. If the prosecution knew that this man specifically worked with law enforcement, well, maybe they didn't say anything because they thought that would be a good thing for them. Because the problem with a juror, the reason they ask you that during the voir dire process, whether or not you have any ties or have any workings with law enforcement, is because they know that that would be most likely unfavorable for the defendant, not the prosecution. Okay, because law enforcement is on the side of the prosecution against the defendant. So if he was working with law enforcement, that would be something that would be a detriment to the defendant, not the prosecution. Okay, so maybe the prosecution actually knew about this, because I don't see how they couldn't have. Okay, please make it all make sense. I want you all to pay attention. I don't know how they could not have known that this man was working with this department, and that this department, in fact, does work with law enforcement. That is common sense. Criminal Justice 101. Okay, so like I said, maybe the prosecution knew it and didn't say anything because they thought, hey, this just might work in our favor. But it didn't. Okay, so anyway, with that all been said, let's continue, because now this civil lawsuit that April Lampros filed against Mr. Sean Diddy Combs has now had some of the allegations tossed. So let's get into it. And for those of you who don't remember who this young lady is, let me just pull up her picture. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance. Let me put her picture up on the screen. That's her right there, okay? That's April Lampros. If you all remember, she said that she sued Diddy. Hold on, let me pull this up. But here's what the judge said about this whole thing. Now, Diddy's legal team claims win after judge issues ruling in civil sexual assault case. So a week after Sean Diddy Combs escaped the top charges in his federal criminal trial, the embattled music producer's lawyers are claiming a victory in an sexual assault case against him. So on July the 8th, New York State Supreme Court Justice Leslie Straw issued a ruling that narrowed the scope of a civil lawsuit against Combs, who was accused of sexual assault and battery by a woman named April Lampros in May of 2024. Now, you all remember that because I went through the entire lawsuit, as I did with all of the lawsuits filed against Diddy. Now, according to a court document obtained by USA Today, Straw agreed to Combs' request to dismiss claims about any incidents that are found to have occurred before December 19th of 2000, when the Gender Motivated Violence Act went into effect in New York City. Lampros had alleged 4 unwanted sexual advances from Combs. There was a rape that she alleged in 1995, an sexual assault in 1996, a coerced sexual performance and rape in 1998, and an sexual assault in her apartment either at the end of 2000 or early 2001. So in an August 19th bid to dismiss Lampros' lawsuit, Combs' lawyer said she filed this baseless lawsuit more than 20 years after the end of her romantic relationship with Mr. Combs, and added that each and every one of her false claims is deficient on its face and must be dismissed. Now, Combs has maintained his innocence in response to at least 70 sexual assault lawsuits, which detail alleged incidents dating back to the 1990s. The 55-year-old music producer and businessman, who was convicted of prostitution charges on July the 2nd, has been jailed since September amid his recently wrapped criminal case. He will be sentenced October the 3rd. Now, why did the judge dismiss some of these claims? Well, here is why. Here is why. Hold on just a moment, beloveds. Lights up, everyone, please. Like and share. Thank you in advance. Thank you in advance. Okay. Now, here's why he dismissed some of them. Because Diddy can't be sued over alleged grapes from the 1990s, according to the judge. The ruling significantly narrows the claims of April Lamprose, who was the 7th alleged victim to sue the rapper last year. Now, the judge dismissed the grape claims from one of the many civil lawsuits against Sean Diddy Combs, ruling that the statute of limitations has expired for allegations that the rap mogul forced a woman to have intercourse and oral sex in the 1990s. April Lamprose's claims against Combs were trimmed down in a Tuesday, July the 8th ruling from New York Judge Leslie A. Straw. Lamprose was the 7th accuser to file a lawsuit for abuse, sexual abuse that is, against Combs, relatively earlier in the rapper's legal salvo that culminated in a criminal trial this month. Now, Lamprose alleged that she met Combs when she was a student at the Fashion Institute of Technology in 1994. And that he rugged and raped her both in her vajayjay and her mouth on 2 separate nights in 1995. Now, Combs allegedly raped Lamprose again after forcing her to have sex with his then girlfriend, Kim Porter, in 1996. Now, Lamprose's attorney, the nefarious Tyrone Blackburn, okay, the one that's accused of backing into a process server trying to serve him with papers, pay attention, okay, brought the claims under New York City's Gender Motivated Violence Act, which was amended in 2022 to open up a 2-year window for sexual assault victims to file claims that would typically be barred by the statute of limitations. But Judge Straw says that pursuant to a recent ruling from a New York appellate court, the claims window only applies to alleged instances of sexual abuse that occurred after the gender-motivated violence's original passage in December of 2000. So anything prior to 2000 is not going to fly. So that's why the judge dismissed some of the claims within her lawsuit. She has maybe 1 or 2 that still she's able to pursue. Therefore, plaintiff claims the acts before December 19th of 2000 are dismissed as untimely. That's what the judge wrote in her ruling. This basically means that all 3 instances when Combs allegedly raped Lamprose are no longer part of her lawsuit. She is allowed, however, to continue suing Combs over a 4th incident in which she says the rapper forcibly kissed and groped her in the early this must be a typo. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but anyway, groped and forcibly kissed her. Now, Lamprose does not know the exact date of this encounter, saying it happened in either late 2000 or early 2001. And see, that's never good. When you're suing somebody and it's been so long and you don't remember the exact dates and times or the exact circumstances or whatever, that usually works against you in the civil case. Now, to the extent that there is a question as to conduct occurring in the year 2000, such are not dismissed at this time, as further discovery is needed to determine the exact date of the alleged incidents, according to Judge Straw. Now, Combs' rep celebrated the decision in a statement on Tuesday, which they say significantly narrows the civil case. They say, importantly, this ruling was made at the pleading stage, and no evidence on the surviving claim has been submitted to the court. This is what Diddy's team said. They further say that Mr. Combs has not yet had an opportunity to contest those false allegations, and the court's decision thus does not address their truth. Now, they say Blackburn, who's behind many of the pending civil sexual assault cases against Mr. Combs, told Billboard that he's proceeding full steam ahead with Lamprose's remaining claims. I bet he is, honey. Okay. saying, I sent Sean Combs' counsel notice that I intend to depose Sean Combs within 60 days, and I will be serving discovery demands this evening. This is what Blackbird said. Now, Lampro sued Combs early in the litigation onslaught that began with singer Cassie Ventura in November of 2023. Okay, and so anyway, honey, what do you all think? What do you all think about all of it? I find it all interesting myself. I find it interesting. Penny says, good, because these claims are getting out of hand. Some of these people are lying. Absolutely. Some of these people are absolutely lying. I mean, think about all these people that came out and said that they had oil poured on them and they lost control of their bodily functions, acted like something was in the baby oil. Now, mind you, I thought it was interesting that these people didn't start saying these things until this story came out. Okay, a whole conspiracy theory that the 1,000 bottles of baby oil confiscated during the raids had GHB in it, okay? And now we see that that clearly was not true, and just as I called it a conspiracy theory, okay? Because I told you all from day one, remember you heard it here first, I absolutely told you all that if there was anything in that baby oil, don't you think the feds would have charged Diddy for that? Specifically, if they were trying to say that he was out here distributing illegal substances, they definitely would have done that. And also, I told you if there was anything in it, the feds would know because they test everything. Okay, they test everything. So that was just always crazy to me. All right. So anyway, I guess that's another win for Diddy. And then also, here's what the juror had to say, because he's going in on people that are blasting him. Okay, let's talk about it. This is the juror who did the interviews. Diddy juror blasts the public's insulting and belittling reaction to the jury's mixed verdict. So they say Sean Diddy Combs is likely still celebrating the verdict reached in the federal trial that saw him acquitted of racketeering and trafficking charges. However, the verdict has received negative reactions from members of the public since it was revealed, with many arguing that the mogul should have been found guilty of all charges and was favored by his celebrity status. Well, here's the thing. I find it interesting that people, listen, I just want you all to pay attention to something. Let's talk about it for a second. Okay, let's talk about it for a second. They say that they're upset with the jurors and that the jurors should have found him guilty. Well, here's the thing. If during the entire trial you had been reporting on it and you had been so adamant that the prosecution was going to win and that Diddy was cooked and that Diddy was going down, you should not now be mad about the jurors, because you should have factored in, if you really thought, if anybody thought that the celebrity status of a juror or of the defendant was going to affect the jurors' decisions, then if you thought that then, why would you have been saying the prosecution was winning? Why would you have been painting this whole narrative that the prosecution was ahead of the game? Okay, but now people that are upset, butthurt, and bent out of shape because it didn't go the way they had hoped, now they want to say, oh, the jurors, they just did it. They favored him because of his celebrity status. Well, you didn't think that was a possibility in the beginning, and I'm not saying that even was a factor. I really don't think it mattered. I don't think that any of the jurors were the least bit concerned about Diddy's celebrity status, especially after they saw that darn video of him beating the hell out of Cassie. I don't think that those jurors are so morally bankrupt that they would do something like that just because somebody's a celebrity. Does that make sense? Because why would Diddy be any different than any other celebrity? Didn't they find Harvey Weinstein guilty? Didn't they find R. Kelly guilty? And I think R. Kelly was much more, popular than Diddy before he started going down. Okay? So I'm just saying, at the end of the day, I don't think that his celebrity status had anything to do with it. But I know that people want to make excuses for their own foolishness after they promised a conviction on all counts, okay? They painted a narrative and now they have egg on their face. So a lot of people just want to say, oh, the jurors were paid off. We don't know if they were actually paid off, but I think they were paid off. The jurors weren't paid off. Okay? The jurors were not paid off. The people did their job. And really, I think it's really asinine, ignorant, and just really low down and disrespectful okay, to say such things about people whom you don't know just because you didn't get the verdict that you wanted. And that goes for people reporting on the story who've said those things. That goes for the news media who've said those things. And I really don't think the media has said any of those things. I haven't heard them, but I have heard one specific person saying these things, preaching it to the masses. And there are some people, just regular public, that are saying these things, okay? Because they have to have an excuse. They can't just say that, oh, the jury made the decision that they felt was best for them. They can't fathom that the jury didn't view the evidence the same way they did. Okay, and the reason is the jurors, in my opinion, use common sense, critical thinking skills, logic, and they viewed the evidence and the testimony and the closing arguments. Okay, I think they looked at the validity of the facts. All right. Whereas many other people caught up in their emotions, all they wanted to do was make asinine excuses. Okay. They wanted to discount when people told lies. They wanted to look over things that certain witnesses did. We're going to look past the fact that Cassie sat there and lied and said Diddy raped her just so she wouldn't get in trouble with Alex Fine. We're going to skirt past that she was acting like a whole Karen. We're going to skirt past the fact that she cheated on Ryan Leslie with Diddy, cheated on Diddy with Kid Cudi, then went out with Michael B. Jordan, cheated on Kid Cudi back with Diddy, and then cheated on Diddy with Alex Fine, and then cheated on Alex Fine with Diddy. We're going to forget all of that. You see, that's what people do when they have selective outrage, okay? I just want you all to pay attention. At the end of the day, that's why I said I will never compare her or Miss Jane Doe to a real trafficked victim who had no consent, who did not give permission, who did not ask for any of this, who wasn't trying to be a gold digger, who wasn't trying to live a fancy, lavish life, who wasn't trying to do any of those things, who didn't have a choice in the matter. I'm not going to compare them to them, and my empathy for them will not be the same. Okay, that's just what it is. And that doesn't have a damn thing to do with Diddy. That has something to do with the facts. Okay, people want to sit there and say, oh, he was holding the house over her head. He was holding her career over her head. Was he? Because according to Clayton Howard, Clayton Howard said that Diddy was constantly asking Cassie, why don't you get in there and do some music? What are you doing? Said, but Cassie was being lazy, basically, like she just wanted to lounge around because now she's with Diddy, like she don't really have to work and go out and do her career. Okay, that's what he said. Now, if it's a lie, he told it, but that's what he said. And why should we believe Cassie any more than we believe him? Okay, because at the end of the day, it's all hearsay. All right? We don't know who's telling the truth and who's lying. But some people be so quick to believe everything Cassie says. Okay, Cassie already told some lies. So once you start telling lies, and I know you're lying, then I have questions about everything you said. If you especially could tell such a lie that basically you're saying that this man raped you, but then you go back and have more relations with him, and then it comes out that you possibly told that lie because you don't want to get caught up with the man that you're now dating, that you're now married to. Okay, so I'm sorry. Okay, T says, hold on. Panther Strike says, Queen, so interesting how these false claims about baby oil attracts attention, but not people who have been, who believe they've been cloned. Honey, it's so much going on around here, beloved. Okay, some of this stuff, in my opinion, was absolutely a distraction. T says, looks like that interview Kalina did was all true. Exactly, T. You're right. Nobody's talking about that, though, beloved. You're absolutely right. But people were so quick to say she was lying. Okay, somebody did a whole video bashing her, saying she's lying, she's trying to defend Diddy, because they didn't want to agree with her because what she said didn't suit their narrative. Okay, this is what happened. All right, so with that all being said, Jimmy says, is the case really tossed? Well, 3 of the allegations, beloved, in the case, those were tossed, not the entire case. As I said, there are still some allegations that are going to be moving forward, as Tyrone Blackburn has said. But 3 of them, the judge has absolutely tossed because they happened. They went past the statute of limitations, okay, before the Gender Motivated Violence Act was passed in December of 2000. These things were alleged to have happened before that. So those things are no longer they're no longer of significance. Okay, so with that all being said, let's continue. Likes up, everyone, please. Don't forget to like and share. Now a juror on the case has hit back at what they call the public's highly insulting response, defending the integrity of their deliberation process. I think these jurors need to sue. I think they definitely need to sue anybody who has accused them without facts, proof, or receipts of being paid off by Diddy. Okay? They need to sue because that's defamation, libel, and slander. Okay, how do you think people are looking at them when somebody is putting that out there? Now, a jury in Diddy's trial has slammed the public response to the recent verdict, which saw the embattled music mogul acquitted of trafficking and racketeering charges. Diddy had been charged with 1 count of racketeering, 2 counts of trafficking, and 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. But after an 8-week trial, he was found not guilty of the more serious crimes, but convicted of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, the verdict drew a mixed reaction from the public, especially on social media, where some speculated Diddy's celebrity status may have influenced the ruling, causing the jury to speak out in defense of the jury's integrity, saying the public reaction is highly insulting and belittling to the jury and the deliberation process. Now, they say we spent over 2 days deliberating. This is what the jury told ABC News. Our decision was based solely on the evidence presented and how the law is stated. And I absolutely believe them. I absolutely believe them on that. Like I said, people need to stop, insulting these poor people. Don't you think they've been through enough? Okay, and here's the thing. Don't you also think that these jurors likely knew that if they didn't rule the way a majority of people or the way some people wanted them to, that they were going to face ridicule? So do you think, that being said, that they would do anything, just to have themselves further being criticized? I don't think so. Todd French says, yeah, that's wild. I have a degree in criminal justice. It's not the evidence. It's the way it's presented that makes or breaks a case. All facts, ma'am. Thank you, beloved. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for your insight into the topic and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Absolutely. It is the way the evidence is presented. And like I told you all for weeks, the prosecution just was not doing a good job. They were spending too much time focusing on that video and talking about baby oil and Astroglide. That was all crazy to me. So they say we spent over 2 days deliberating. We would have treated any defendant in the same manner, regardless of who they are. I have nothing else to say. And, like I said, I don't think that anybody who is a respectful or a decent human being would be going in on these people for simply doing the best that they could do. Okay, we cannot get mad at the jurors because the prosecution didn't prove their case. They worked with what they had to. And here's the thing. Here's how you know that the jurors were absolutely trying to do the best of their ability to do their due diligence. They asked questions, okay? They asked questions, when they weren't sure about the rug with a D, okay, the illegal substances, the distribution. They asked questions about that. When they wanted more insight into Cassie's testimony as well as Daniel Phillips. They asked to see the transcript so they could go over it. When they had a problem with juror number 25, who is the one that supposedly, according to reports, that's the one that supposedly was not trying to follow the judge's orders or instructions, who already had come to a conclusion without going through the proper procedure. When they saw that, they reported that to the judge. Now, if these people were paid off by Diddy or anyone else, do you think they would have been doing any of those things? If they were not trying to do their due diligence, do you think they would have been doing any of those things? If they were so caught up with Diddy's celebrity status, do you think they would have been doing any of those things? Okay? I want you all to pay attention, because there's a lot of false narratives being painted and people going in on the jury. That's just not going to make things any better. Now, let's talk about what Joe Tacopina said. Joe Tacopina, for those of you who don't remember, he is the attorney who won the case for ASAP. This man is an excellent lawyer, high-profile attorney, usually hired by celebrities or high-profile people. This man said months ago that they did not have a RICO. Some people don't want to get that through their thick skulls because it doesn't go with what they feel. It doesn't go with what they like. They'll still say to this day that, if they had done this or that, then they could have proven their case. Well, I guess they know more than prosecution, even though they maybe didn't go to law school. But here's what an actual lawyer who is high profile and very good at that, makes millions of dollars defending celebrity clients. This is what he had to say, and I think that he should know much better than them. Okay, so let's get into it. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. I'm going to use an overlay because this is TMZ, and y'all know TMZ will hit you with a copyright strike. Please pay attention. Okay, so I'm going to put something over this, but I want you all to hear what this man has to say. because he called it from day one, and that's just the fact.
You called it. You really did.
I don't think I need to be a genius to call this. I mean, that was a case that was so over prosecuted. It was really the most expensive prostitution trial in the history of American jurisprudence. That's all it was. Racketeering to me was a joke. A racketeering enterprise. I mean, when we think of racketeering, we think of things like organized crime, drug cartels, vicious gangs who were born to commit crimes. I mean, was never a racketeering case. Sex trafficking is a high standard. Sex trafficking, you really need fraud, coercion, force. There was so much evidence of consent in this case that it was impossible for 12 people to believe that sex trafficking happened. That was not sex trafficking. Again, that was some horrific stuff and whatever, but everyone was willing participant at times. So, it was, to me, it was absolutely going to wind up being this way. And if you have a doubt that's based on reason, you must acquit. And here, there was so much evidence of consent. I mean, if you looked at the contemporaneous text messages that were elicited by the defense throughout this trial of Cassie and the other one, it was clear that they were consenting, at least at portions of this. So, when is it consensual? When is it not consensual? I mean, this case was, again, I called it from the beginning, not because I'm a fortune teller. I think I called it because the evidence and the charges sort of were pretty clear to me that this was going to wind up being a prostitution conviction. And we spent God knows how many billions of dollars in federal court talking about baby oil, applesauce on hamburgers, the stupidest stuff I've ever heard. Urination, the things that you really don't expect to hear in a federal district court. That was the gist of this testimony. So, look, Diddy was proven to be a bad guy, but this is not the case. This was not the case to bring against him. The whole thing was weird. It was not done right, and it was done, as I've said before, I believe to garner publicity for certain individuals, and maybe they wanted to make a name for themselves. But this did not help anyone's career from the U.S. Attorney's Office, that's for sure.
Okay, I absolutely agree. And here's the thing. Some of these people are absolutely nothing more than Google lawyers. Okay? Google lawyers. Googling stuff is not going to always give you the answers that you seek. Okay? And I don't even allow my students to turn in any type of papers, research papers or anything. I don't allow them to use Google. Okay, that's what I don't allow them to use, Google nor Wikipedia. Okay, and that's for a very specific reason. So when people come talking about, Google said this and that, third, honey, Google is not a reliable source. Okay, especially when it comes to the law and legalese. Okay, that's what it isn't. So let's get into this video about News Nation, where they have that same juror, the alternate juror. Then they talk about how Diddy got a standing ovation when he returned back to jail. I bet he did. They love to hear that somebody beat the feds. Yeah, they definitely love to hear that.
Because that month used to be a very lucky month for one Sean Diddy Combs. His #1 album, Press Play, it dropped in October of 2006. His cable TV network, Revolt TV, that launched in October of 2013. And Chicago's mayor once declared Diddy Day in October. And that was to honor the rap mogul's charity work. And we now know that this October will be momentous as well. Maybe even Diddy's luckiest day. At a hearing today in federal court in Manhattan, 6 days after Diddy's acquittal on RICO and sex trafficking, the judge in his case set sentencing for Diddy's 2 prostitution-related convictions for, ready? Yep, October 3rd. How about that? October 3rd. By which date he will have spent 1 year and 17 days behind bars. And every day of his involuntary stay is going to count towards the final number of months.
Hold on. My moderator, TC Dan, says being nefarious and deviant does not automatically equate to criminality. You're right, Dan, beloved. Okay, I have to agree with you on that, because if it did, you would be locked up somewhere and rather than sitting in this chat. Okay, please pay attention. Please pay attention. No, but seriously, the thing is, that's absolutely true, because a lot of people, convicted Diddy in the court of public opinion due to moral issues. Okay, because they feel like, okay, he's a monster. He did this, he did that. Yes, okay, we can say that he's a monster. We can say that he's abusive. He beats women. But the people who are complaining about the verdict, I want you all to pay attention. The only thing they keep saying is that we saw the video. We saw him beat Cassie. Yes, we did see it. But at the end of the day, that's not what he was on trial for. Okay, he was not on trial for that. So why do they keep running? Why do they just keep saying that over and over? If they put him on trial, if they indicted him for domestic violence, that's a whole nother story. But they did not. So that has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he was acquitted of the RICO, okay, the S trafficking. That has nothing to do with that. So it's just obtuse to keep saying it.
4 years of his sentence. As for that sentence, that has been, how do I call it? Maybe the biggest parlor game in town. What's the judge going to do? Is he going to throw the book at him? Is he going to let him off easy? At the top end, Diddy could get 10 years.
Diddy is not going to get 10 years, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, I would be very shocked if he did. Okay, Todd French says the focus should be on the apparatus and mechanisms of criminal justice, not the participants that are chosen to mediate the outcomes. # media included. Thank you, beloved. Okay, that was very eloquently said. Okay, please pay attention. You're absolutely right. But you see, here's the thing, beloved. You know that because you have a degree in criminal justice. I know that, okay, because I'm a criminal justice professor. Attorneys know that. Anyone that has education in the law, in the field of criminal justice, whether you went to school to be an attorney or whatever, they know these things. But the general public, many of them don't know that, and nor do they care. Because you know what the general public tends to care about? Whether or not they like the defendant, okay? Whether or not they feel sad for the victim. That's what most people are going off of. And what do those things pertain to? Those things are only relevant to people's emotions. And in the court of law, your emotions don't matter. It's facts over feelings all day, every day, and twice on Sundays. So you're absolutely right. That is, in fact, what they should focus on. See, some people don't understand how the criminal justice system works. Okay. And quite frankly, I don't have time to sit here and break it all down to them. And it probably wouldn't even do me any good anyway, because some people are so hard-headed and just so caught up in their emotions about things, they can't see past it, and they're not going to listen to reason anyway. So I don't like to argue with emotional people. I don't even like to debate them or keep going back and forth, because all you do is piss them off, because they can't debunk what you're saying when you're speaking facts. And they don't want to comprehend what you're explaining when you try to tell them how the wheels of the criminal justice system, in fact, turn and roll. Just like I told you all last night on the panel discussion, I told you all that the reason they did not prove that it was, in fact, a criminal organization, a criminal enterprise, which was the first step that they needed in fact, proving the RICO. The reason they didn't prove that is because they didn't have any co-conspirators, and the people that they claimed were the co-conspirators were not even brought in to testify against Diddy. So that looked crazy. Okay, that rarely happens. When you look at somebody like John Gotti, you see all the people around him who were working for him, who had some sort of role in the hierarchy. You saw them also being convicted or tried. And then you see the same thing with Michael Francisi. Okay, the same thing. So that's what you tend to see. But we didn't see that here. And then we also see that they weren't able to prove it because there was no mens rea, like I told you, which means a guilty mind. I said the same thing last night. If these people, like the assistants who were going and helping Diddy get illegal substances, they knew that he was an addict. So they're going out here getting these things for him, but they didn't intend to do that when they got hired to work for him. And then when they were asked to do it, I'm sure they didn't want to. They didn't say, I want to go pick up my boss's illegal substances. They did it because they wanted to keep their jobs. They didn't want to lose their employment. But people don't make allowances for that, but they'll make allowances for Cassie and Jane Doe, as to why they stayed doing the freak-offs and doing all the other BS. They'll make allowances for them, but they won't make allowances for the assistants. They'll just say these people were all criminals and they were working in a criminal enterprise. No, they weren't. Okay, so that was never proven. There was no mens rea. And without a guilty mind, which means you intentionally set out to do nefarious things and to intentionally set out to break the law willfully, you didn't have to be persuaded or coerced. That's what you intended to do all along. Without them being able to prove that, which they absolutely did not, it doesn't matter how they presented their case. They never had a RICO, period. People can say, oh, if they'd have done this and done that, they'd have proved it. No, they wouldn't have, because they never would have been able to prove that there was, in fact, a criminal organization. Okay, and I'm not going to sit up here and argue with people. That's why, I just say what I have to say. But at the end of the day, that's the fact of the matter. Thank you, Todd, for your insight into the topic and your contribution to the channel, beloved. Okay, now Todd says, all facts, 5 days in, I knew they were screwed. Okay, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and people can love it or hate it. But we should always be glad when the judicial system works the way it's supposed to, because the same people upset about this verdict would be, and saying that the jurors got it wrong and the jurors are ignorant and calling them nasty names and going in on them saying they were paid off and all this crazy stuff. Those same people wouldn't have been saying any damn thing if it had gone in their favor. They wouldn't be having any complaints if it had gone in their favor. Do you think they'd be talking about the juror being accused of lying and saying the juror's under investigation? They wouldn't be saying any of those things had it gone in their favor. But now, when it doesn't go in your favor, now you have to make an excuse to justify why you got it all wrong, because all you did was tell a bunch of lies. In some cases, some of these reporters told mountains of lies, painted false narratives. Okay, that's why I don't really listen to the lamestream media a lot, because sometimes they just paint narratives. Okay, and it's just like Nancy Grace. Let's talk about Nancy Grace. During the OJ trial, Nancy Grace was coming out every day talking about how, the prosecution was winning and this and that, and acting as though, supposedly acting as though the defense wasn't doing a good job or whatever. But then when OJ got acquitted, how are you looking? That discounts everything that you were saying. You were painting a whole narrative, just like somebody did during the Diddy case. Okay, so it's best to always just tell the truth. I reported to you all when the prosecution had a good day. I reported to you all when the defense had a good day. At the end of the day, just keep it real. Because then if you're sitting here painting for one side and act like this side's doing all this and they're doing everything's going so good for them, then the shock of it all, now you got egg on your face and you look like a whole fool, and everybody clearly knows that you're just a liar who lies, when it turns out to be the opposite. Now you have to scramble to try to justify your foolishness and try to make it look like, the jurors, they were doing this, that, and the third. Well, here's the thing. If this juror actually did lie about having ties to law enforcement, that absolutely would have had no bearing, in my opinion, on the prosecution's ability to present their case or prove their case. Because law enforcement works hand in hand with the prosecution, honey. They work against the defense, okay? So please pay attention. So that right there, that tidbit of information would work in Diddy's favor, not the prosecution. Okay, so Todd, again, thank you, beloved, for your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay, Durana says, I love how the queen says fool. You always say that. You always say that, beloved. Okay, so now with that being said, Panther Strike says, Queen family for $25 million. What was accomplished? I can't stand the diddler, but he wasn't the prosecution. He wasn't what the prosecution framed him to be. Therefore, tax dollars were not used properly. I have to agree. Do you all realize what a waste of taxpayer money that was? And in fact, it was likely more than $25 million. Okay? It could have been way more than that, for all we know, beloved. But they absolutely wasted the money of the taxpayers by overreaching and overcharging him. Why didn't they simply just charge him with the Mann Act? 2 counts of the Mann Act. Then they would have won fair and square. But they overreached, and I told you all that. I told you all that they stacked the case. I told you all that they were doing too much, that they overcharged him. I told you all that they were fumbling some of the things about the case, in my opinion. Okay? Y'all know you heard it here first. Thank you, Panther Strike, for your insight into the topic and your contribution to the channel, beloved. Peace, love, and blessings.
On each count. So 2 terms of 10, and they could run one after the other. So you do the math. What does that mean? It means 20 years total. But the prosecutors are going a little conservative, and they're asking for at least 4 to 5 years in prison. For their part, Team Diddy is asking for 2 years, which with the time that he's already served would mean a little less than 1 year left in the federal lockup. As you know, the reason that he's in a prison before a conviction is that he's been locked up without bail at the Metropolitan Detention Center in.
Now, let me say this. Now, pay attention to what she just said, beloveds. Some people are going around here saying, oh, Diddy's going to get 20 years. He's going to get 20 years, 10 years for each count. No, he isn't. Okay, Miss Sheila said, Queen, you have been saying that forever. Thank you, beloved. Facts No Feeling says, Inner City Press is looking compromised. Hold on. Inner City Press is looking compromised now, in my opinion. Like you said, if he had that information, why is he just now presenting? Exactly. You saw the letter. You all saw the letter. He said he had this information and emailed them June the 19th. Well, why are you just now bringing this out? And did you give this information to the judge, the prosecution, or the defense? Okay, it sounds like maybe this is just coming out now because the verdict didn't go the way he was hoping. I don't know. That's just what it looks like. Now, with that being said, here's the thing. For the people that are saying Diddy's going to get 20 years, well, you absolutely could get 10 years for the Mann Act or whatever. But here's the thing. A person convicted under the Mann Act, basically would get 10 years if they are a repeat offender, okay? Because remember, in federal sentencing, they go by the guidelines. So let me just give you a detailed breakdown of the maximums of everything. The maximum sentence, each violation of the Mann Act carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison. Diddy has 2. That's why some people are saying 20 years. But here's the thing. If a person is convicted of multiple Mann Act violations, the potential sentence can be higher, depending on whether the sentences are served consecutively or concurrently. Now, that being said, if the sentences are served concurrently, which is at the same time, the maximum sentence would be 10 years in the case of 2 counts. Okay, so that being said, Diddy could get 10 years. But if served consecutively, one after the other, then it could be 20 years. But here's the thing. The prosecution's not even asking for him to get that much time. They only want him to get about 5 years. The judge has already said that he's going to give Diddy time served. He's already been in prison for about 9 or 10 months. By the time he goes for sentencing, that'll be like a year, okay? And because October the 3rd, and then he's been in jail since September the 17th. He got arrested on the 16th, right? So he's been in jail since the 16th, with September the 16th. So with that all been said, that'll be a whole year. So if even if the judge gives him 5, which the prosecution is asking for, then you take away time served, that's 4 years. Okay, I'm saying that it's going to likely get 4 years max. Because why would the judge give him more than what the prosecution even asked for? Okay. Now, with that all being said, another thing is Diddy has no prior convictions. Okay. If you have no prior convictions, you usually get sentenced on the low end, not the high end. Okay. You usually get sentenced on the lower end, not the high end. That's just how that goes. So I don't think he's going to get anywhere near 10 years or 20 years specifically. He will likely get like 4 years max, because that'll include the time served. And now, of course, his team's asking for like 2 years. He might even get that. Who knows? But that'll just depend on some of the factors, like, the outcome of his program that he went in for battering women, and any other thing that they can show, the defense can show, to show that he has reform, or that he's going to be, a better person moving forward. Okay. But if the judge goes strictly by what the prosecution is asking for, then he'll do like 4 years. And that's just it. Don't forget I told you that.
Brooklyn, known far and wide for its awfulness. But apparently it's a lot less awful for Sean Combs than it used to be, because his lead attorney says after last week's verdict, when Diddy was transported back to the lockup, his fellow inmates gave him a standing ovation, saying, quote, "We never see anyone beat the government," which Diddy did not do entirely, right?
Well, he didn't beat them entirely, but he sure did make them look stupid. Okay, his defense team made the government look stupid, in my opinion. Todd French says, first thing I ever learned when I got my degree was that the court of public opinion is not a real court. Take notes. Keep teaching them, madam. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate your kind words. And also, thank you for another donation to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. And you're absolutely right. And see, that's the thing. All of these emotional people who are upset about the verdict, they had already judged Diddy in the court of public opinion. Okay, they had already found him guilty. They'd already seen the videotape of him beating Cassie nasty and decided that he's a monster who needs to go down regardless of whether they're able to prove the RICO or not. And that's why they're sadly disappointed. And the prosecution knew exactly what they were doing. The prosecution thought they were playing chess, but however, they were foolishly playing checkers. The defense was playing chess. And people say, well, why didn't the defense call forward any witnesses? Why did they not call witnesses at the last minute and the end of the 11th hour? Because they already knew that they were winning. I don't know how people don't know that the defense realized, okay, somewhere along the lines, maybe they knew all along, but somewhere at some point, the defense knew that the prosecution had not proven their case. Okay? Think about when the judge said that there was a verdict on 4 counts, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but not on the first count. And then the judge asked the defense, do you want, gave them 3 choices. We can either stop here, we can use the Allen ruling, or we can just tell them to keep deliberating. Agnifilo said, tell them to keep deliberating. He said they're doing a good job. They've been doing their due diligence. Basically, when he said that, I said, yeah, he knows that this is going in their favor. The prosecution said the same thing. Let them keep deliberating. I think maybe the prosecution was hoping that it was going to turn out good for them. But when they said they had not ruled on count 1, that should have let everybody know that they obviously didn't find him guilty of the 2 counts of S trafficking. Because if they had found him guilty of the 2 counts of S trafficking, then count 1 would have been a no-brainer. That would have been a no-brainer. So that's definitely why Mark Agnifilo was like, yeah, we about to win this thing, okay? And then, some people criticize the defense and for celebrating, criticize Diddy for celebrating. What are they supposed to do? If you were facing a life sentence and you realize that you beat the case, you'd be celebrating too. So I thought that's crazy for people going around just trying to make money, doing interviews and just trying to milk this basically for all it's worth. Now they're trying to go in on Diddy for celebrating his victory, going in on his children for celebrating their father's victory. That is all so ridiculous to me, okay? That is all so crazy. Clearly clout chasing, but let me continue.
Right. And to that end, I want you to check out this picture of the actual verdict sheet that was filled out by the foreman on his jury. Big check mark next to the words not guilty on the biggest charges, racketeering and sex trafficking. But guilty on counts 3 and 5, transportation to engage in prostitution.
I'm going to skip past this because I just want to hear what this juror has to say. Here we go.
Talk to us tonight.
Your workflow is important to us. Please wait indefinitely.
With Monday.com's intuitive work management.
Night. George, welcome to the show. Boy, oh boy, have I ever wanted to talk to you. I'm really thankful that you're doing this. And first, can I just say thank you for your service?
No, thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's a lot. Everybody thinks jury duty, how do I get out of it? But you're an example of a shining fellow American who didn't do that. And you did your civic duty. And I know you're smiling, but I'm really pious about this stuff. I think it's really important. So with that all said, did you agree with the verdict?
I did. I did agree with the verdict. Through the whole thing, I took a lot of notes. I think about 350 pages worth of notes, about 3 steno pads worth of notes. I wasn't actually the one that took the most notes. There was others that actually took more notes than I did. I think 4 steno pads. But I think if I was able to, given the chance to deliberate and review all my notes, review all the evidence, everything I needed to see, and also, most importantly, review the judge's charges, I would have eventually reached the same conclusion that the other the 12 jurors found.
And of course, there you were. The 12 went off into the room, and you didn't get to be the fly on the wall in the room. But did you all have the same sense? I know you weren't allowed to talk about the facts of the case, but you were with these people for 7 weeks straight. Did you all get the sense that everybody felt the same way all the way along, or was it poker face? You couldn't tell.
It was. I think, in a sense, we were just all hoping. We were just kind of waiting for it to end. Every day. I think it was just because there was so much evidence and so much testimony, and it was like, as you said, it was 7 weeks of witness after witness after witness after witness. So I think we were hoping for it to come all together. And we were really waiting for the judge to give us his instructions to know, what the definitions are, what we're actually looking to do. So I think we had an open mind this entire time, and it really was like a show. And, we were just, the audience and just waiting to hear everything, whatever both sides present to us, and then make the ruling.
With that, I want to go sort of granular down to each of these charges, because when you listen to the prosecution's closing argument, she said to you, you can agree to have a lot of sex, and then if you don't agree just one time, that's sex trafficking. And I felt like there was evidence where both Jane and Cassie said, I don't want to do this. And there was pressure. There was either force, fraud, or coercion. Did you not agree? Did you think that the women were not telling the truth?
No. From the beginning, you could tell that. I mean, especially like Cassie, when she came in, she was, very visibly pregnant. I mean, she was extremely pregnant. So and even when Jane came, I think both of them were very credible. But as you listen to their testimony, and both of them, their testimony went for days. I think as you listen to them, some parts of their story at times, seemed like certain parts didn't really. There were a little bit holes, especially when under cross-examination, it raised a little bit levels of doubt.
Now, I want you all to pay attention. This man's trying to be very nice and trying to choose his words carefully. He doesn't want to come out and say that Cassie was lying or that he felt like she was lying. He doesn't want to come out and say that because he probably doesn't want further public ridicule. He's basically in a nice way saying that he didn't believe her in some of the things that she said. He said there were some holes, and especially during cross-examination, okay? He just doesn't want to call her a liar. But I absolutely think that she lied about some things. But let's continue.
And especially in my mind.
George,
certain things.
So I get that. I definitely get that. It raises certain levels of doubt because I love free coughs, right? There's that text message. I love to free cough with you. But do you believe, George, and do you think your fellow jurors believed that Cassie, and let's just put Jane aside, that Cassie at least one time did not want to be a part of that? Say, for instance, after the escort testified that he could hear what sounded like Diddy beating her in the next room. And then they came back in and he said, finish strong. Did you believe that maybe that was an instance where Cassie truly did not want to finish, but she was coerced into finishing that free cough?
When looking at everything, and then because the defense, when they were showing, the counter arguments, they would always show, the after effects of some of especially the text messages. And in those instances, there was also a lot of saying thank you sometimes, or, I had a great time. So those kind of instances, they really did, I think, raise a little bit of doubt. And then just to know that these freak-offs were, done in with free will.
Well, that's what I mean. So I think many of them seemed to be, according to the evidence, she was into it. She was organizing and saying thank you.
Sidebar. She's clearly leading the witness, okay? If I were in court right now and listened to her say this crap, I'd be like, oh, Your Honor, I object. She's clearly leading the witness. She's trying to get this man to say what she wants him to say. Okay, just like Winter said in the chat, she's trying to coax him into a lie. Yes, she's trying to get him to say what she is thinking. Lady, this man has made up his mind. The verdict is already in, and he's telling you what he thinks. Okay, please sit down somewhere. Now, I like you, Ashley, but please, let's not get in our emotions, okay? The man said what he said. Queen Sam said, sounds like Ashley's a little salty about the end results. And of course she is. Of course, DJ Big Six said objection. Okay, Winter said he's standing strong. Anthony said, Queen, don't forget that Tupac case starts in March of 2026. Keefe D, hold on, said Puffy's never going home, in my opinion. Let me tell you something, honey. It actually starts in February of 2026, and I've already made arrangements to be there, okay? Don't you worry. I've got my press badge and everything, honey. I will be there, boots on the ground. Now, the only thing that I'm hoping is that case doesn't, cross paths with the Luigi Mangione case, because I want to go to both. Okay, but honey, I will absolutely be there, beloved. Please pay attention, honey. I'm on a roll. Just call me Butter because I'm on a roll. Okay, Byron said, you can't handle the truth. Ray said, listen how she's manipulating him. He's being suckered and don't even see it. Okay, yes, she's clearly trying to get him to say what she wants to hear. Okay, let this man just speak freely.
And all the rest. But that one freak off, that's why I get down to the granular. The one freak off where the escort said I could hear her being, what sounded like her being beaten. She came out and Diddy said, finish strong. And is it possible, again, in a reasonable, not beyond all measure of doubt, just a reasonable doubt, is it possible that Cassie did finish that freak off under coercion because she had just been smacked around in the room next door?
No, it very well could be. But I think when you look at everything together, there was some doubt that the jury had to convict.
Let me tell you all something. This is what no, you all said that she made that up. No, Diddy did say that in one of the texts. It said that Diddy told her to finish strong. But here's the thing that I find interesting, though. See, what she wants him to do, she wants him to agree with her that proves force and coercion. But what he did, which is what the judge wanted them to do, was they looked at all of the incidents, all of the evidence collectively. They didn't cherry pick one part, because that's what you don't do. You understand what I'm saying? You don't cherry pick one part and say, okay, well, this right here fits the narrative, so I'm going to go with this, because that's what she's doing. She's cherry picking evidence that fits her narrative. Oh, this was coercion. Well, if you look at this and he told her finish strong, well, that proves that he was coercing her. No, it doesn't. Look at the evidence collectively. That's what you do. Okay? So with that all being said, Prince said, he said that, but not after hitting her. She added that in. Yes. Now that part right there, I don't remember them saying anything about him hitting her in the next room. Okay. He did tell her to finish strong. But yeah, that part, she definitely seems to have added that in, beloved. I have to agree with you on that. Unapologetic Melody says, that's not how consent works. Okay. Unapologetic Melody says, you can disagree the way the case was handled, but you haven't criticized Diddy for any of his actions. You have more venom for Cassie, and it's concerning. Why is it concerning? Why is it concerning? Do you know me in real life? Does what I say or do affect your life? And first of all, you're telling a lie. You're being disingenuous, ma'am, okay, or sir, or him, they, the, we, them, us. I don't know if you have pronouns or what, but here's what I'll say. No, I have absolutely criticized Diddy. What are you talking about? When did I not? Okay, I said Diddy was a monster. Okay, I don't even like Diddy. I've said that too. But see, this is selective hearing. You see, you're mad and you're in your feelings because I've been holding Cassie accountable. I don't have venom for Cassie. I'm just painting out the facts. And I'm also giving my opinion, just like you're giving yours. You see, the problem with people like you, Miss Unapologetic or Mr. Unapologetic Melody, because there's two people on your picture. I can't tell which one is you. But at the end of the day, people like you think that it's okay to have your opinion and that your opinion is somehow supposed to override anybody else's that doesn't suit your narrative or that's contrary to your views. That's not how it works. Just like you have your opinion, I have mine. I can speak on Cassie or Diddy however I want. I don't have to care what you think about it or anybody else. And at the end of the day, you're just telling a blatant lie. I don't know if you just hopped into the chat this moment in time, or if you've been watching my lives, or if you were watching even from the beginning of this one. Because even in the beginning of this life, I said Diddy was a monster. So ma'am, I'm not painting any narratives to make Diddy look good or to make Cassie look bad. I'm just telling the facts, okay? Now, if I'm talking about Cassie, I'm going to tell the truth about Cassie, and I'm also going to give my opinion, just like I do about Diddy. I'm quite sure that if you don't like what I'm saying about Cassie, then you'll try to paint a narrative that, oh, she's not saying anything bad about Diddy. Girl, have you seen my videos about Diddy? Go back and watch. Okay, I said a whole lot of things about Diddy, period. But I don't have to explain myself to you. I just wanted to clarify that. Now, let me continue. And if you don't like what the queen is cooking, you already know you don't even have to be here, ma'am or sir or whoever, okay? Facts, no feeling said Queen has stated on multiple occasions that she is not a Diddy supporter. Thank you. I mean, I don't know why people get mad because you don't agree with their opinion. See, on this channel, the good news is You can have a different opinion. You don't have to agree with anything I say as long as you're respectful about it. But what we're not going to do is sit here and tell lies on the queen and try to paint false narratives. Okay, that's what I don't like. Now, Candace said this woman stayed in had plenty of times to get away. She's not a kid, and I'm so confused. Exactly. DJ Big Six said selective outrage. Exactly. Because here's the thing. The bottom line is Cassie did pull a Karen when she lied and said Diddy raped her because she didn't want Alex Fine to find out that she was messing with Diddy, having relations with Diddy while he's calling her on the phone, FaceTiming her. There was a text message that showed that she was so concerned about Diddy and the women he was messing with when she was with Alex. Diddy said, oh, you want to ask me about women, but who was that ninja that was calling you on FaceTime when we was making love? That's what Diddy asked her. So there's proof and receipts that were shown during testimony and during exhibits within the trial because I was there, boots on the ground in the main courtroom every day. With that all being said, I think I know what I'm talking about. Okay, I don't know who you've been listening to that gave you lies or painted narratives or whatever that makes you feel that Cassie doesn't have some accountability in this. To me, Cassie's nothing more than an unindicted co-conspirator. You might want to go listen to Clayton Howard's interview that he did with Tasha K, where he talked about Cassie and the things that Flash said about Cassie as well. And I'm sure you read what Punisher said about Cassie when he testified. Okay, so I'm sorry, Cassie's no angel. Do I need to pull up that video footage where Cassie was threatening Jonathan Oddie and talking like a whole gangster and thug? All right, but she's innocent. The same person who was threatening to murk somebody, I'm going to pull that up in just a minute. Because, honey, don't play with me today. Don't play with me, all right? Don't even try it. Oh, you have so much this. And here's another thing, too. Don't be up in my chat calling me this lady. My name is Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. And you can call me that, or you can simply call me the queen. But what we're not going to do is call me this lady. You're on my channel, so act like you got some respect, okay? Thank you. Like Jay McClinton said, Cassie is not that innocent. No, she isn't. Okay. And then Unapologetic Melody says, y'all need education on consent. The government should talk about this more. I knew this would be an issue. Well, here's the thing. I don't need an education on consent. I have a PhD. So I think I'm pretty sure. Okay, I'm a college professor of criminal justice. So I think I'm pretty sure about what consent is. All right. That's just what it is. And I think the jurors were pretty sure about what consent is. Now, just because they didn't agree with your narrative, ma'am, or sir, or whomever, that's no reason for you to say nasty things and be upset. Get out of your feelings, okay? You don't live with Cassie or Diddy. You've probably never met either of them, nor will you ever. Anything that's going on with them is not going to benefit or affect your life in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and mine either. And when you say it's concerning that I'm saying something about Cassie but not Diddy, even if that were true, which it absolutely isn't, how the hell is that concerning for you? I'm sorry. What I eat shouldn't make you itch. That's all I'm saying. Okay, but anyway, let's continue. Now, I'm going to continue with this, but in the meantime, I'm going to find that audio of Cassie talking like a whole gangster.
To say that those two counts were not guilty.
And maybe, I don't know if you agree with this, George, maybe there was too much information. Maybe the prosecution just handed you way too much to be able to kind of sort through it all, again, on that granular level. Is that fair?
I think it is fair. I mean, there was a lot of information, I have to say. I mean, every day when I would leave the court, it was just like, you really didn't know like where to even like begin. A lot of times I would just walk home from the court all the way up to Grand Central just to kind of clear my mind of all the things, because it's just, it's just a lot of information. There's a lot of exhibits that they kept presenting. So, and every day was just, I always just came with an open mind, and I really didn't have my mind made up in either way, really until the end, until we were really waiting until the judge gave his 62-page instructions on what we need to do. And that's, I think, I was waiting for, was just, what are we here for?
That's a long walk, by the way.
It is.
That's like almost an hour if I do my math right. That's a lot. That's a long walk. I have one last question. I'm going to make it brief because I'm running out of time, but I am so curious, because as I watched all of this testimony and the witnesses every single day, I felt like I saw evidence of bribery, kidnapping, extortion, assault, corroborated by several witnesses, testimony, and messages. And those were all the predicate acts in order to find RICO, the racketeering. And yet the jury found no racketeering. Why do you think that is?
I think, racketeering, and I mean, from what I understood, it's a very, all the charges are very high bar charges. But when you look at the different counts, I think the defense raised.
Don't settle for less. Here's what others are.
Unapologetic Melody says, Queen doesn't know them either and acting like she knows everything, which isn't true. Honey, I'm not acting like I know everything. I'm acting like I know what went on with the trial because I was there. Okay? I didn't say I know everything. Nobody knows everything, which is why I read and research on a regular basis because I keep learning stuff every day. Okay? Now, so that too is a lie. And you don't know me to know what I think. All right? Other than what I've said on this live. With that being said, acting like she knows everything, which isn't true. I'll keep saying Queen is a patriarchal Black woman. Well, you can say whatever you want and think, beloved. At the end of the day, you sound bitter and mad. And yeah, I don't know them either. Never said that I did. What I'm saying is you are the one that's upset about my opinion. So the only reason I would expect you to be upset about my opinion is if it were people that you knew and loved and cared for. Other than that, you should have no dog in the fight. Now, I'm not upset about your opinion of Cassie and Diddy or anyone else because I don't know them. You're absolutely right. And I didn't need you to tell me that. Okay? Thank you. Now, with that all being said, let me continue. I'm going to skip past this advertisement and then we're going to listen to Cassie making all those threats. Okay?
Doing to fix missing and broken teeth. The company everyone has been raving about is called Nuvia. With
some doubt in each one of them, especially kidnapping, arson, forced labor, all of those different charges because you had to find them in two.
And let me just say this. What did I tell you all days ago, beloved? I said I'm not going to argue with anybody about this case who actually wasn't there in the courtroom. Okay? Because I do know what went on with that. That's what I do know. Now let's continue.
I think there was always a little bit of doubt. The prosecution did an excellent job. I have the highest regards for all the prosecutors. I was very impressed with them. But the defense did poke some holes in the witnesses' arguments on some of those charges.
They did their job.
They did their job. They did what they were paid for.
They poked a lot of holes, George.
Yes.
They got you to reasonable doubt. They got your colleagues to reasonable doubt. One last quick question. I knew that Sure. I said that was my last question, but I do have this one. Can I ask you this? Yeah. What do you think of Sean Combs as a man?
Well, any man who does domestic violence isn't much of a man, in my opinion. It's anyone that beats a woman, hurts a woman. Is not a good person. And that was from the beginning. They had even the defense admitted that Sean Diddy Combs is he's a very flawed individual. So I'm glad that the evidence was overwhelming that he's found guilty on these two charges. So I'm glad that he is going to face justice.
Serve some time. Yeah.
So I'm happy for that.
George,
and I hope he gets the max, whatever he can get.
Were you about to say you hope he gets the max?
I said I hope, it's the judge's discretion for whatever, however the sentence, but I hope, and I know the judge has been fair this whole time, so I hope, it's the maximum whatever is possible.
That's interesting. I want to thank you.
Okay. Now, Ashley loved when he said that. All right, Ashley, you finally got what you wanted. Okay, because Ashley hopes he gets the max too. Okay, clearly, Carly says, clearly she's biased. She says it wasn't a toxic relationship. Girl, even the prosecution agreed it was toxic at Unapologetic Melody. Exactly, it was toxic. It reminded me, in some aspects, it reminded me of Whitney and Bobby. They were both doing illegal substances and they were getting into fights and things like that. It got physical at times. So, I absolutely agree with you on that, beloved. And here's the thing. The bottom line is, if I can talk trash about Diddy, I can talk trash about Cassie too. Okay, some people don't want to hold Cassie accountable, but they want to just keep going in on Diddy. Well, Cassie's just as guilty as him, in my opinion. That's what I've been saying. This is nothing new. Before the trial ever started, what did I tell you guys, beloveds? I said Cassie is likely an unindicted co-conspirator, and that's what she is. That's why she was granted immunity, because she was committing crimes just like Diddy was. Okay, they were both in a toxic, volatile relationship that included violence, both of them inflicting violence upon each other, which Diddy should not have been putting his hands on a woman, but we know Diddy had a history of putting his hands on women. We know that. Okay, and other people as well. Diddy is just violent. Even his friend and former attorney, Mark Garagos, said that Diddy has a problem with being violent. We all know that Diddy is no damn angel. But my point is, Cassie ain't either. Now, don't get mad because I'm just telling it the way I see it. Okay, you can see it how you will, and I'm going to see it how I will. Now, let's get into this, because since people want to act like Cassie's an angel, let's just go back to remind people of how much a thug she really was. Okay, at the end of the day, she's just as thugged out as Diddy, as far as I'm concerned. They were two peas in a pod, Bonnie and MF and Clyde. That's all I'm saying. Okay, you can agree or disagree. That's how I'm calling it. Now, here's the audio right here.
Live.
Yeah, you don't have to see it, but it's my life and I'll kill you. No, I will kill you if you don't show me right now. I will kill you and I will hide you and I will cut you up and put you in the dirt right now. Pull it up. If you have it, pull that up. Because if not, I'm going to kill you and then he's going to kill you again. So just do it. Pull that up right now. You got that pull that up. I'm going to kill you. You don't understand. I don't give a I've never killed anybody in my life, but I will kill you because you're with me. You're with me in my life right now. If I saw a video of you doing anything that you didn't want people to see, I would show you the video so you could tell me what the happened. You're playing games with me, telling me you saw some. Now you're saying you didn't see some. You're with me. I'm going to you up. I don't think you understand. And it's not going to be my hands, and it's not going to be blood on my hands. Someone else is going to do it. So you have to tell me right now, and I'm recording this whole shit. FYI, tell me what the you're talking about. Because this is not cool. We're not playing. I'm not playing with you, Sujit. Like, you saw some Yes, you're my brother. Be my brother and tell me what you saw. You're going to be able to find it?
Cassie says she never wanted anyone to watch the video and insists he show her the footage. And a couple times she tells him someone other than her will murder him. The video was screened for jurors May 16th, when Cassie was being cross-examined. And the event is from March 2014, and it happened in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Cassie said she approached Sujit after he claimed he'd seen her in a freak-off video.
If you crave nature but still shop online, night.
Okay, so with that all being said, like I said, Cassie is no damn angel, so miss me with it, okay? Now, you don't have anything to say about that, I'm sure, or anything else that Cassie did that was nefarious, right? Now, if there was an audio of Diddy saying that unapologetic melody, I'm sure you'd have a whole lot to say. But since it's Cassie, let's just skirt past that and act like she didn't just threaten to murder this man and then said she won't have blood on her hands. Okay? Says women do not need to be perfect victims. The perfect victim doesn't exist. Who said anything about a perfect victim? Okay, Cassie is a victim. She's a victim of domestic violence. She was not a victim of trafficking, period. Not to me and not to the jurors. All right, not to the jurors. Hold on. While I'm looking for this real quick, let me let you guys have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes. I want to pull something up real quick. I said this before, but let me just pull up this receipt and let you all see what I'm talking about.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Now, with that all been said, don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts. You can also find it at Walmart.com. Okay, so let's talk about it, because on another broadcast, I told you all how, in fact, there was the case of Centoya Brown, okay, who was trafficked and then ended up going to prison after murking the person who was trafficking her. I said that I'm not going to liken Cassie or Jane Doe to that woman. I'm not. They're not the same. And no, there is no such thing as a perfect victim. But I'll bet Unapologetic Melody doesn't think that Clayton Howard, who's now suing Cassie, I bet you don't think that he's a victim. And why not? Okay? He has some of the same allegations against Cassie that she had against Diddy. But I'm sure that because he's a man, you don't think that he is a victim, right? And now she says, I'm a misogynist, patriarchal Black woman. Okay, whatever. I'm misogynistic because I don't go along with your narrative. Let me just give this to you, beloved. Let me just play this for you before I boot you up out of here. This is for you, Unapologetic Melody. I hate to do it, but it got to be done.
Funky dog head bitch. How dare you try to tarnish my motherfucking
Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur
reputation, punk motherfucker. Respect the
royals
and back off, bitch, before we come get you.
And that's on box. I haven't done that in a while. Okay, I hadn't done that in a while. Now she says, "Come, Cassie is Ghislaine Maxwell is just silly." I didn't say she was Ghislaine Maxwell. I didn't say anything about that. I said her and Diddy were Bonnie and Clyde. That's what I said. Okay. Because they were both thugs, or acting like it at least. Now, with that all being said, Letitia says Cassie and her hubby were broke and came up with a plan for some money, not thinking it all the way through because she is a junkie. Now the tables are going to turn on because she was just as complicit. Exactly. And that's why she's being sued. And yes, they both were. Her and Diddy were both addicts. Her and Diddy were both addicted to illegal substances. They both were toxic and violent. Diddy more so than her. This is likely why Cassie, was mad about this is likely why she was mad about these other women, because she's putting up with him, putting paws on her. She's doing all these freak offs, whether she wanted to or not. And then he's still out here cheating and all of that. She could have left and she should have left, but she chose not to. With that all being said, here's the thing. There is no such thing as a perfect victim. Absolutely. I agree with you on that. But here's what I will say. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the people that I'm not going to liken Cassie to, because Cassie was complicit, okay? She was there for the money. That's why she said when she was told to break up with Diddy, she said out of her own mouth that, in fact, Jay-Z's already taken. Now, Black women charged with killing their suspected traffickers. Several cases involve Black women who have been charged with killing individuals they allege were traffickers or abusers. These cases often raise complex legal and ethical questions surrounding self-defense, the criminalization of trafficking victims, and the application of laws intended to protect survivors. You see, I'm an advocate for these women. Okay, I work with different foundations, okay, and nonprofits that help these women, provide resources to them, provide legal information to them, and help them obtain legal counsel and all of that. That's what I do, okay? I'm not just on YouTube talking and sitting here going back and forth with people in my chat. With that all being said, Prince said Cassie coerced Clayton Howard. That's right. He said that Cassie coerced him and that she manipulated him and Diddy. Kid Cudi said the same thing. Cassie played him and Diddy. But we're not going to get into that, but let's keep talking about this. Thank you, beloved, for that information. Okay, which I have absolutely said the same thing. Now, here's the thing. One prominent example is the case of Crystal Kaiser of Wisconsin. Kaiser was sentenced to 11 years in prison for the murder of Randall Volar, who is believed to have trafficked her since she was a teenager. She didn't have a dog in the fight as it pertained to consent. So don't tell me that I don't know what consent is. I know all about consent and lack thereof. Okay, and that's what happened in this case. This woman never, not one day, not 2 days, not 3 days, ever said it was okay for her to be forced to do things that she didn't want to do. To be sold, her body to be sold to men that she didn't know for a profit, for her trafficker to get money. She never agreed to any of it. Neither did any of these women that I'm going to mention. But Cassie, she did. Cassie was the one calling these men for the freak-offs. She was the one having freak-offs behind Diddy's back. Clayton Howard said so, okay? There were other men that said the same. Okay, and they weren't called to testify because they would have exposed Cassie the truth about some of the things that were going on. Now, with that all being said, and that's no shade to Cassie, those are just the facts. Now, goes on to say, at the time of the killing, Kaiser was 17 years old and had been allegedly sexually abused and trafficked by Villar for months, according to reports from the Washington Post. Kaiser initially faced a possible life sentence for first-degree intentional homicide, but pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of reckless homicide to avoid a trial and potential life sentence. Here's the thing. This poor woman was trafficked since she was a teenager. And then when she gets the guts to fight back and take out the person who did it to her, she had more courage than Cassie, apparently, because y'all say, oh, Cassie couldn't leave. She was afraid of this and that. Well, maybe she was. This was a person who this had happened to her since she was a kid. And when she got the nerve to fight back and take out the person who was abusing her, then she gets sent to prison. How do you think that made her feel? What kind of trauma and victimization do you think that she's had to deal with? I'm not going to liken anybody who had to endure this to a Cassie or a Jane Doe. I'm just not going to do it. That doesn't mean that I'm saying Cassie and Jane Doe are not victims. What I am saying is that they were victims, but they made themselves victims by putting themselves in nefarious situations due to their love of money, being around a man with power and prestige, and having a closeness to A-list celebrities and wanting to live a life full of fame and fortune. Okay? But let me continue. Now, the case drew national attention and sparked debate about the application of self-defense laws and the challenges faced by trafficking victims in the legal system. Now, you want to talk about Cassie and fight so damn hard for her. Have you ever fought for Crystal Kaiser? Because I have. Okay, another well-known case is that one of Satoya Brown Long, Satoya Brown Long in Tennessee. I already talked about that one, but she had a sentence that was life, and it was commuted to 15 years plus 10 years of supervised parole in Tennessee. Okay, she went to prison for murking the person who did the same to her. So, but you want me to sit here and not call Cassie out for some of the things that she did? These women were not out here going to freak offs and calling people to have freak offs and telling people they wanted to do freak offs so they could be with somebody to get money out of them because they wanted somebody to make them a career. At the end of the day, I never said Cassie was Ghislaine Maxwell either. At the end of the day, what you're doing is trying to flip the script on me to help it suit your narrative. You don't have to agree with me, but what you're not going to do is sit up here and paint lies, okay? And act like I'm doing something nefarious or I'm just going hard in the paint on Cassie but not Diddy. Because I've gone twice, 3 times as hard on Diddy. Go back and check the previous videos. Okay, that's how that goes. At the end of the day, Cassie was a little slickster. She was a little hustler, and she was a dope addict just like Diddy. Okay, she was violent just like Diddy. She put hands on Diddy just like he put hands on her. That's no excuse, however, for him beating the crap out of her. But I'm just letting you know that those two, in my opinion, were one in the same. One of them just had more power and had the money, so they clearly had the upper hand. That's how that went. Okay? I hope I made that clear. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about Trump, honey. Because when I tell you guys that MAGA is oh so mad with Trump, let's get into it. They are mad with Trump, okay, about the Epstein reports. Okay, please pay attention. They said Trump sent out a memo. Now, y'all know they've been saying from day one, prior to the election or right after, that Trump is going to release the Epstein files. Honey, I knew Trump was all cap. Now, right, I knew it. I knew Trump was all cap. And in fact, I told you guys that whole thing with the tariffs was going to turn around and make it bad and hard for all of us. But now, his fanfare is dying down because people are mad at him. And by the way, Jeffrey Epstein's brother laughed at the FBI findings regarding his death. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, let's get into this. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. Trump supporters angry. Department's Epstein memo. So they say that there's been fallout. I'm going to share my screen so you all can hear this. I don't know why these people just linger on Trump's every word and believe every little thing that he says. Because they know Trump be telling lie after lie after lie.
We turn now to the fallout from the Justice Department's latest conclusion about sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. This morning, the Trump administration pushing back against calls to fire Attorney General Pam Bondi over her handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years.
A Justice Department report this week revealed the accused sex trafficker did not keep a secret so-called client list, seemingly contradicting Bondi's statement earlier this year that she had Epstein's list in her office.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
Bondi now clarifying that statement, saying she was taken out of context.
My response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well.
The Justice Department report also confirming Epstein died by suicide. Investigators saying the conclusion that Epstein died by suicide is further supported by video footage from where Epstein was housed. But some critics raising questions about that footage, pointing to a jump in the timestamp from 11:58:59 to midnight. Bondi, when asked about the missing minute, said the videotape glitch happens every night and is not a sign of tampering. Still, some Trump loyalists not happy with these explanations.
The only other explanation that I can think of, again, maybe you've got another, is that intel services are at the very center of this story.
Elon Musk also critical, posting, "How can people be expected to have faith in Trump if he won't release the Epstein files?" President Trump yesterday dismissing the speculation.
We have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep?
Elon.
Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear Trump? Trump said, are people still talking about this guy, this creep? Trump, sit your arse down somewhere. Okay? Sit your arse down somewhere. I absolutely cannot. All right? I absolutely cannot. Now he's talking about, are people still talking about? Yes, we're still talking about, because where's the damn files, Trump? Where is that list of clients that you promised, in fact? Okay, I knew Trump was all cap. Okay, Pretty Wing says she's trying to clean it up. Yes, she is. I don't like Trump or Pam Bondi. Both of them get on my darn nerves. And then Elon needs to also sit down somewhere right next to him, because he's sitting there saying, how are people going to believe in Trump if he won't produce the files? Elon, you were just kissing his boots a few months ago before y'all fell out, okay? Because he did something you didn't like. Now you want to cry foul. No. Go back to that same energy you had from day one when you paid allegedly $250 million for his campaign, okay? Miss Mississippi said Trump's big evil bill, not big evil bill, is going to make them even madder when they're unable to provide for themselves. Exactly. Okay, exactly. That's the truth. Queen Sam said, Witch, you're a damn liar. No wonder you're on Dump's team. All liars. Absolutely, I believe it and agree. Okay, she's a whole Karen to me, honey. I just don't like that lady. Okay, I just don't like Pam Bondi. She's a liar who lies. Okay? She's a liar who lies. Queen Sam said, kissing his boots, kneecaps, and ass. Angela said the mainstream media is terrible. Yes, they are. That's why I call them the lamestream media, honey. Okay, you couldn't pay me to be in cahoots with them. Okay, but anyway, I find it also
Musk previously claimed the president was listed in Epstein's file, but Musk later deleted that post.
Yeah, that's what Musk said. He said that Trump the dump was in the Epstein files. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. If he was or is, what does that say about you, Elon? Because you were his best bro. Okay. So anyway, let's talk about it. President Donald Trump's MAGA base has erupted in outrage over the Justice Department and FBI's memo, stating they found no evidence that notorious deceased financier Jeffrey Epstein kept a client list. Now they know that's a lie. Please sit down somewhere. Y'all really think we're going to fall for this? There's no client list at all, ever. But this man was convicted. He and his sidekick, Ghislaine Maxwell, were both convicted of trafficking. Who were their clients? They had clients. And let us not forget, because I don't forget any damn thing. Y'all know I was on Jeffrey Epstein and Weinstein, and I remember specifically that it was reported that there was a list of 100 names that Epstein gave to the judge. And after he gave the judge that list, he turned up dead in his cell, and the list was sealed by the judge. And you know why? Because these were people he was accusing of having come to him for services. And at the end of the day, we all know that according to the Constitution, under the 6th Amendment, you have a right to confront your accuser. So if Epstein was accusing those 100 people of being his clients, for him to turn up dead means that now they can't confront their accuser. So now the list is sealed. Y'all see how that works? But now we're supposed to think there was no list. Magically now, all of a sudden, there never was one. Yeah, please miss us with it. So they go on to say that there was no proof that there was a client list, with many of the president's most loyal allies blasting the administration's leadership. Now, some of Trump's Most diehard supporters have spent the past day blasting FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino. Okay, both one-time MAGA MAGA world darlings themselves over the Epstein memo. However, the harshest backlash seems to be focused on Attorney General Pam Bondi, with many pro-Trump voices criticizing her over mixed messaging regarding the Epstein files and multiple supporters calling for her to resign. And here's the thing. If there was no darn list, why in the hell would Trump be saying and promising that he's going to release it? Okay? Because he knew there was a list. Trump, please stop lying. Okay? At this point, it's ridiculous. Bondi had previously promised the public release of scores of records associated with federal probes into Epstein, though in recent interviews, she has claimed the delay was attributed to tens of thousands of videos within FBI's possession showing potential pornography of little folks. Okay? During a Fox News interview in February, Bondi suggested an alleged Epstein client list was sitting on her desk. But now there is no such thing, Bondi? Really? Okay, though no client list has ever been disclosed. And multiple sources have told ABC News that no such list has ever surfaced. Well, that's because they buried it, I'm sure. Now, asked about Bondi's comments about the list, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claimed Bondi wasn't referring to any client list. Oh, really? What was she talking about then? Make it all make sense. She was saying the entirety of all the paperwork, all of the paper in relation to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. That's what the Attorney General was referring to, according to Leavitt. This is what she said at the White House press briefing on Monday. These people are all just liars who lie, and they think that the public is stupid. They think that we are the sheeple. At the end of the day, absolutely not. The only sheeple are the people who think that Trump is an upstanding citizen with integrity and that he doesn't tell lies. Okay, those people are clearly sheeple, and they need to wake the hell up. But let me continue. Now, on Tuesday, Bondi said she was referring to a file on Epstein, saying that in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was, it's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Yeah, we believe you. Not. When the question was first posed to Bondi, Trump interrupted, shutting down the question. Oh, are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? That guy's been talked about for years. You're asking? We have Texas. We have this. We have all these things. And people are still talking about this guy, this creep. This is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time? And do you feel like answering? Yeah, we do want to waste the time, Trump. We want to get to the bottom of it. Bondi responded that she didn't mind answering. Now, in late February, Bondi handed out binders with Epstein case files to pro-Trump social media influencers at the White House, files that ultimately contained little new information. As ABC News reported at the time, the move caught White House officials off guard and outraged some supporters of the president who had been promised that more details would be made public. Now, I want you all to pay attention to something. Let me just roll this back a second. In late February, Bondi handed out binders with Epstein case files to pro-Trump social media influencers at the White House. Why would there be social media influencers at the White House? I'm so glad you asked. You all remember when I told you all and showed you the proof and receipts just a couple of days ago that the government, of course, they use social media influencers to paint narratives, to spew propaganda, and do whatever else they need them to do. Okay? I just want y'all to pay attention. All right. So when people try to sit here and act like it's a joke for someone to have alleged that a certain someone may possibly have been paid by the prosecution, yeah, these things absolutely happen. All right. Allegedly. Now, with that being said, let me continue. So now Trump supporters are voicing their frustrations with Bondi and others, saying that the Trump administration is involved in a cover-up. Well, that's exactly what it sounds like to me. Far-right activist Laura Loomer has called for Bondi to resign. Former Trump advisor Steve Bannon spoke at length about the memo on his popular War Room show on Monday, even questioning if the administration is as transparent as it claims it would be. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones has accused the Trump administration of being part of a cover-up and at one point posted a video from his car where he broke down in tears talking about it. Not Alex Jones in the car crying. He's going to cry in the car, y'all. I thought Alex Jones loved Trump, but let me continue. Loomer isn't the only MAGA world voice calling for Bondi to resign. Pro-Trump influencers, the Hodge twins. Oh, really? Don't y'all love it? All of these people who've been caping for Trump, going hard in the paint like he's the best thing since sliced bread. Now they're complaining and whining and even crying. I absolutely love it. Didn't I tell y'all this was going to happen? But let me continue. Now, the Hodge twins also called on Trump to fire Bondi, and so did American conservative political commentator Liz Wheeler. Mike Cernovich, a past Pizzagate conspiracy pusher, posted that no one is believing the Epstein cover-up at Donald Trump. This will be part of your legacy. There's still time to change it. And Trump's not going to back down on his lies. He's a whole narcissist. Michael Flynn, who served in Trump's first administration and was pardoned by the president, called the Trump administration's memo another brutal and stark example of the two different standards we appear to adhere to in the United States in a social media post on Monday, adding that this has to change and quickly. Now, the response from MAGA influencers who feel betrayed by the Justice Department memo marks some of the most vocal backlash Trump's administration has faced from his own loyal supporters during his second term. The Epstein files for years have been the subject of widespread speculation and conspiracy theories that the government was covering up information and a supposed client list to protect powerful businessmen and politicians. Now Trump's administration, being led by some of the same MAGA voices, such as Patel, who once pushed the idea of a cover-up, is trying to explain that no such evidence exists. Cash Patel, please stop it. Okay, you were yourself some time ago saying that there was an alleged cover-up. Now he's sitting here saying there's no evidence. I want y'all to pay attention. Trump's whole entire administration is full of lies and BS, okay? And the truth isn't in them, all right? You cannot believe these people. They're all in cahoots with telling these lies, and I blame the people who voted for them, or who voted for Trump anyway. I blame the people who voted for Trump. Y'all got yourselves in this mess, so don't start crying and whining now, because this is exactly what I expected. Okay, I said it before it all happened. Retired federal police officer Carol Banks said, the Trump beautiful bill, the Trump BS support, the rich only bill. Exactly. Okay, DJ Big Six said a whole cult. Okay, and also for those of you who still don't think that the government does hire social media influencers, okay, to push narratives and spew propaganda, retired federal police officer Carol Banks agreed with me when I said it. And if anybody would know, she would. Okay, so please pay attention. Okay, please pay attention. Now, Pam Hawker says, Queen, I remember when you showed us the list and Trump was on it. You showed us the picture, Bill Clinton sitting in a chair in a dress. Y'all remember that? I sure did. But they said that list was fake, beloved. That's what they said. They said it was fake. Okay, and that picture with Bill Clinton sitting in that blue dress with a red high heel pumps, that was supposedly found in Epstein's house. Yeah, they took that, they confiscated that from Epstein's house, if I'm not mistaken. Gina said, I remember that. Okay. All right. Retired federal officer Carol Banks says 100. Okay. See, y'all be acting like I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. Y'all need to pay attention. Now, with that all being said, Carly says, y'all better pay attention to all these cuts he's making, Medicaid, food benefits, etc. Exactly, beloved. Okay, so with that all being said, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. Listen, I love you all to life. I appreciate you all. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Okay, Carol Banks said they were at the parties. Okay, but they probably were, because something ain't right. Why are they now sitting up here trying to act like there's no list? Okay, Chief just said they were cool with Epstein. You know, some of these people might have been to Epstein Island at them parties they were having and all that, okay? They absolutely might have been there. And I heard tell that, what's his name, Kevin Spacey, had to get kicked off the island. Now, that's all alleged, okay? This is all alleged. They said Kevin Spacey even got kicked off the island for doing too much. I'm not going to get into what they said he was doing on it, but they said he was doing too much. Now, if I want you all to really marinate on this. If somebody was accused of doing too much on Epstein Island, how nefarious are they? They would have to be beyond, okay? They would have to be beyond. So anyway, with that all been said, I love you all to life. I hope you all enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Okay, until next time, I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.
Hit him with that gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen.